Welcome to a brand new Ammach program. You're in for an interesting ride. This is the Ammach Files, hosted by peoplesinternetradio.com.
Hello and welcome to program 49 of the Ammach Files on yet another thoroughly rained on week. And it is the 22nd of September 2015. And you know me well enough now, folks, to know that it's a little bit after 11 o'clock. Now, we nearly didn't get on because we were having massive technical issues. We may have a little virusy thing going on, but you know what? Vin saved the day, and so you're not seeing the Ammach material at the back there, but we've got Vin. So thank you, Vin. Fantastic. So I hope you enjoy the show, folks, and bear with us for any technical shenanigans that may eventuate throughout the program. Now, it's just a quick reminder to let you know, first of all, let me get down to the details of Things Ammach. The conference, or the workshop, on the 31st of October, which is a Saturday down in the Hastings area, is filling up. So, folks, I have to also arrange a light lunch for all you guys. So if you want to come along to that, please do. Please let me know. Please book your seats or your place via the Ammach website, which you probably know now is www.ammach.co.uk or www.alienabductionuk.com. Now, this is a forensic dowsing workshop, and I know you've heard me mention this before, but this is unique. You know, this is a new set of tools, a new methodology that allows us into the ET world through the magnetic field real time, and it allows us to gather analysis and data, and we can get down to very fine details. So this workshop is going to teach you some very basic tools, but you will be able to go out in your own field, in your own location, and you'll be able to feed back. And what we're hoping to do is to start gathering data from this system soon. Now, we've got three fabulous guys who are doing that at the moment. One's a retired physicist, and you know, he said that if he had had this tool and known of it when he was a working physicist, that would have saved him a huge amount of time. So I really don't want you guys to miss this, because no one else really knows about this methodology. It's birthing in the UK, it's birthing right here and now. And although these guys have been working for the last 20 years in dowsing and ancient archaeology, it's only in the last 4, really, since the time Ammach has been going, interestingly enough, that they began to see anomalous results in their readings, and these turned out to be ET related. And now that's just not in ancient archaeology either, let me tell you. This is current. And what is so amazing about what they are finding is that they are seeing confederations, they are seeing bodies of fleets, they are seeing real-time wars going on throughout the cosmos, and they're logging all of this, and they are noting the impact that it's having around and how our solar system is involved. I mean, this is real. This is not conspiracies. This is not, you know, fantasy or imagination. This is real. So this is an opportunity for you guys to find it out for yourselves, and so it can become real for you. And you know, it's really exciting, and you know, we are so fortunate to have this methodology turn up at this time in humanity's development, because I think it's a very simple tool, and it's actually easy to learn, but it is just the doing of it and accepting that this can be a fact. It's often the way when things are simple, we can't quite accept it. So now I want to tell you about a major experience that I had last Thursday, which is the 17th of September. Now, I've always said, as founder of Ammach and all of that, I have never really been prone to paranormal experiences or visions or anything that a lot of people have. You know, I'm just extraordinarily grounded and anchored in this 3D reality. Now, I have experienced a lot of, especially in the developing years, my younger years, psychic attacks and some extraordinary things in the second year of Ammach that were, you know, very challenging, but nevertheless, I had the tools and skills to deal with that. So apart from that, there's been nothing else except until last Thursday. Now, what was really interesting about this is that I was impressed, let's call it. Another friend might say compelled, because she actually had the same experience, but 14 hours later, in terms of this next little part of the story. And that is that I was impressed to put a candle in each of my rooms, and I have a maisonette, so I have some stairs. So as I'd finished, and also then to take some incense around the room, and that's sort of reaffirming protection, that only the highest and the best can you know, enter and interact, all of that. Anyway, it was really interesting because almost as I was going around, it was as if I was not really thinking those intentions, but just kind of knew them. So as if something else was with me, but that was very subtle. So as I'm going up the stairs, about halfway up, I suddenly felt like I'd walked into another energy field, because I felt like 100 eyes watching me. It was really super intense. And then my whole body and physicality went cold from head to foot, but extreme. This isn't just a little chill. This is like somebody had opened a freezer and had walked into it, and accompanied by this tingling. So that kind of stopped me right in my steps there, or my tracks. And then I carried on upstairs and thought, okay, let's kind of observe. Okay, so that was all right. I did feel a bit spooked. And that was it. So I came back down, finished a bit of work, and I probably ended up going to bed about 2, and I was really tired, so I slept quite quickly, only to wake up maybe an hour or two later, not anymore, I'm sure, because it was still very dark. And I woke up, I was sleeping on my left side, which is turned toward the wall and the window, and all very dark. And I wanted to turn over to my right side. Now, my right side would face the inside of the room then, and the door. Now, I don't normally wake up to turn over. And I couldn't turn over either. Now, in the past, I have been subject to paralysis, this very common thing that people experience, but never anything else. And I'm not a person who can relax, go with it, and, you know, perhaps just burst like a bubble out of my body and astral travel. I just can't do it. I have to fight it. I'm just wired that way, and that's that. So anyway, it wasn't paralysis, but it was as if I was kind of bound by some magnetic energy or some field, let's call it a field. My breathing began to change as I began to go into panic mode and fight mode slightly. And then I heard myself say, it was my voice inside, saying, just let me turn over, please. Now, who was I talking to? I mean, for goodness sake. So with that, I could turn over, and I realized I'd fallen asleep with my laptop right by my side, by side of my bed, and pretty near my head. Now, I know you shouldn't do all of that stuff, but anyway, I do. So I went to, because the power light was pulsing a bit, I went to turn it off, but I was going to take the plug out of the socket, which requires being awake. So I'm now awake. I'm not half asleep. I was when I was turning over, but that kind of experience of the breathing woke me right up. And as I went to, with the thought of taking the plug out, I suddenly noticed a haze. The best description, it wasn't really a light, more like a haze in the middle of the room. And then in this haze was a man. So I reckon he'd probably be about 12 feet away from my bed. And he was, I'd say he was about 5'8", very slender. He was wearing 60s kind of styled outfit. He was wearing dark trousers and a shirt with what we used to call a tank top, that woolen sleeveless top. And he had a dark beard and dark hair. I mean, I would recognize him in the street if I saw him. It was that clear. And he was definitely human, and he just gave a little, he was almost face on to me, not quite, maybe 80% face on to me, and he gave a little wave with his left hand, and like a sort of cheerio or whatever, and I thought, what the hell? And as the what the hell came out of my thoughts, I didn't say it, he disappeared, and in his place, but slightly nearer to me by another 2 or 3 feet, was a being, very tall, maybe 6-7 foot, but 90-degree on to me. So I only saw them in profile, and the head was hunched down, shoulders hunched over, and they were I just was aware of their skinniness and their tallness, and they got everything tucked in as if they were making themselves as small as possible to me. But the one thing that they couldn't really make small and that I had a very good visual on, and this is 3D visioning now, this is not me being half asleep, was their arm. Now, if I just show you, if I have my arm tucked into my side like that, and then I flop my hand over, okay, like that, that's sort of a 90-degree angle. Well, the appendage from their wrist was like a hand, I suppose, was twice the size of mine lengthwise, and also it flexed by about 45 degrees. So I know some double jointed people can get their thumb to touch their arm. I'm not one of those, but we have seen it in humans, but this was naturally resting at least 45-degree angle, if not a 40-degree angle, which is very unusual. And it didn't have a hand. It was more like, I don't know whether it's pincers or a little, I don't know what that was. But anyway, the head wasn't big that I could tell. I don't know how far it had got its chin tucked down, but it looked sort of a rounded top. So I don't know whether I was clearly looking at some kind of insectoid being. First time in my life, and this was a big surprise and shock. And what was interesting too, this whole event probably lasted no more than 10 seconds, maybe 8, I don't know, something like that. And but there was no fear, absolutely no fear. It was just as if I was observing, and it almost, I could say, looked like I was looking at a hologram. I don't know if I was or not, but the haze screen thing and the human going, and anyway, all of that. And there were no smells, there was no telepathic communication, there was nothing at all. And the creature kind of dissolved and disappeared away along with the haze. And then I unplugged my computer and I thought, oh my God, shall I put the light on to sleep? Well, I don't sleep well in the light, so I thought, don't be silly, it's gone, go to sleep. So the house the next day was, so it's just last Friday, was a little bit energetic. So I was still kind of feeling a little bit at 6s and 7s energetically, and thought, oh my God, now I've talked to several people about this, and some people think that it's contact being initiated. And I must say, when I have said, put out for contact, I only want personally diplomatic contact, intermediary contact, humane contact. I don't want to be terrified. I want to understand, and I want to do it educationally. So, I don't want any genetic tissue taken, none of that. Anyway, so it's almost as if my intentions were met, because I was shielded from any fear or anything like that, and I don't feel any fear speaking about it either. So the reason I wanted to share this with you is because, A, I don't consider myself an experiencer, but maybe I'm becoming one, I don't know, I'll keep you posted. But also, maybe this is a new phase for humanity in general, because if I'm going through this material manifestation and this doesn't happen to me, generally speaking, then, to me it's like a signal that something may be going on. And someone actually said, well, maybe I'm also going up to another level of development with the steps and the symbology of that. Who knows what? We can read all kinds of things into that. So I also heard that there was a massive earthquake in Chile around Wednesday into Thursday, and that in fact the earth was continuing to quake. Now, I haven't followed that up. I don't know if the earth is still continuing to quake, but it was for quite a long time. Now, because this was such a massive earthquake, I just wondered if the mass of the magnetic fields was so displaced, was so disturbed, that allowed, if you like, a window of opportunity for someone to connect with me, the ripple effect of the magnetic energy being impacted, Anyway, that was just what I wanted to say. So it's just very strange. And the final thing I want to say about on the Ammach front, going away from that experience now, is that I will be hosting a workshop with 2 other very powerful people, ladies. It's like the A-team have to come out now. And we're going to be doing a combination of work on the Ammach side of things, looking at the history of ET, looking at what the implications are for humanity now. And then the next presenter, Anne Holsworth, will be taking center stage as a practitioner of yoga, but not as you know it. She works with breathing in a very dynamic way. And she's a Bowen practitioner, amongst other things. And she has been working energetically with some very incredible energies. And she's going to be working using the breath with the physical and taking us through some very deep, incredible work with that. We'll be finishing off the day with Cecilia Martinez, who has traveled a lot of the world and part of it with a world leader who will currently still be nameless for safety reasons. And this world leader, who's no longer with us, sadly, they were assassinated, took on board her own spiritual and personal development, and Cecilia was essentially her guide and guardian. And this person actually was beginning to work on their role, with their role as leader of their country, using these spiritual values. So, you know, what a joy and what an amazing thing that will be. And she's thinking about divulging the name and sharing that with you at the workshop. But also she'll be taking us through some of the extraordinary experiences she's been through abroad in the Philippines with Sixto Paz Wells, with the ET contact. So it is going to be an absolutely fully day. So I hope you can be with us. It's probably going to be November, December time. There will be details about that on the events page of the Ammach website. When you hit the events page, it is the events tab itself under which the details are. So people get confused and click on the next one and wonder why they don't see the information. All right, well, on to my guest. So before we get on to my guest, we will have a song, but I'm just going to say that love is indeed a theme for this evening, and that is also reflected in my wonderful guest, whose name is Bradley Loves. Now, because of our incredible technical dance this evening, Vin is going to delight us with a musical surprise. So Vin, when you're ready, you hit that spin button, my dear, and we'll just go for it. And I'll be bringing Bradley Loves to you, and we'll be talking about AI, ET, Dracos, and an awful lot more. Stay with us, the Ammach Files. That was wonderful. Thank you very much, Vin, for looking after us on the musical side. And I am very, very delighted and relieved to be inviting Bradley Loves onto the Ammach Files. Thank you very much for being with us, Bradley. I don't know, where is it? Colorado you're in? You're not California, that's for sure.
No, I'm in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Okay, all right. Well, Bradley, I always have a curiosity about the beginnings of people's realization and the path that they follow. And I think most people are fascinated by that element too. So I think if we could start by just finding out a little bit about you. I mean, let's go back to the young child who I know that you didn't take from our chat anything at face value, and you questioned your adults around you. So let's hear a little bit about that, because I think that sort of set the platform for the rest of your life and where we're going with tonight's talk.
All right. Well, yeah. I'm probably about as young as 3 or 4 years old. I had an epiphany, and that epiphany was simply that I was in the wrong place. I was on the wrong planet. Everything that was happening around me made no sense. And the way people were doing things, and the and just the ideals and the desires and the goals of the adults around me, I thought were ludicrous. And I was a very challenging child. I was a very challenging boy, and I just I put it directly to my parents constantly. Why are you doing it like that? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why would people act this way, or why would they act that way? And it was very clear to me that I wasn't really fitting in, and it just went on from there.
Yeah, so you did go to university or college, I'm not sure if it was university, but to actually study to become an accounting attorney, or an accountant and an attorney, I'm not quite sure which.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you spent quite a while doing that, a few years, huh?
Yeah, I know. I was 3 years at the university, and I took pretty much everything I could get my hands on. I was a classical accounting and business law, physics, mathematics, pretty much anything that I thought might be useful, philosophy. But in the end, what I decided was that if I was going to live an honest life, if I was going to live a life that did not create what I believed was harm, if not create harm for any other living being, that I would have to stop. Because it was my my thought and my position that what I was being trained to do was ultimately going to hurt people in very subtle ways. And
you were mentioning, sorry to interrupt, Bradley, you were mentioning at one time in our pre-show chat that you said that what you were being asked to do constantly was massage figures, basically lie constantly about what you were showing people.
Well, everything boils down to very subtle, in the end. It's, of course, they wouldn't have said you're lying. They would have said this is how to do it, And I was just smart enough to see through all that.
Yeah, yeah. So, so you came out of college, I take it, or university, and then where did that life take you then?
Well, everyone around me thought I was nuts. I was an absolute lunatic for, being so close to a degree and then not finishing. But what I thought was that I could do better if I was to just design my own life, create my own life in my own way. And I picked a career that I thought was honorable and something that was creative and something that I could do and come home and look at myself in the mirror and say, yeah, I like that guy, okay? And that was carpentry, I didn't want to be a financial analyst or an accountant and push pens around and revalue things such that while certain people were making a whole lot of money, others were losing a whole lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I understand. So anyway, I think that's, it's not often that I come across people who have the will and the courage to do that, because I know that will be in the face of, fly in the face of peers and, your parents and higher ups in the human contact. So, congratulations. Did you make the right choice?
Yes, I think I did. I was a very strange little boy. When I was mowing the lawn, when I was like 7 years old, I would go around the circles and contemplating the existence of God and eternity, and other things. Yeah. Very rarely did I get on with little kids my age. Most of the times I wanted to spend with adults because they were talking about things that at least made a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Okay, well, I wanted to really kick off with, you gave me, you have a blog site, and it's called The Masters of Love, and I'll put that information will be on the podcast page, folks, so you can see that there. Bradley has two sites, or two aspects of the site, one free and one that is a subscription. And the free one has a wonderful article called The Great Con of Man. And this talk tonight is going to go into the depths of AI as far as we have time to do so, as well as ET and all things allied. But first of all, we're going to go and explore the hoodwinking majorly of humanity over the eons. And that is indeed what the Great Con of Man is about. And it's an excellent article, about 80 pages. And I have to tell you and be quite honest that I didn't get through the 80 pages because having to pay attention elsewhere to some tech stuff and all the rest of it, but I got a very, very good gist. And you are so on target for the PIR, People's Internet Radio, philosophy and ethos, because it's all about sovereignty and it's all about solutions. And that is exactly what you're talking about. And also these folks, a lot of the folks here are very skilled and schooled in helping people with the law and helping people maintain their homes, helping people maintain their lives, because there is so much distress and despair going on an everyday, every man, woman level. And these guys are right at the coalface. So I really appreciate you, Bradley, with what you were saying in The Great Con. And I think we should explore some of that, because you did say to me, some of this stuff that the new, I'm just going to call them the New World Order, the Illuminati, we can label all we want, but you know where I'm coming from with that.
Yes.
Use black magic. Well, that wasn't any news to me. That is exactly what they're doing. But I don't know whether anybody else will see it in those terms. But as I often say, we have to use words. And this is as good a description as it gets, very basically, about what's been happening to humanity, and it is the black arts. So, Bradley, I'd love you to start the ball rolling with just some of your your thoughts from that very interesting article about the great con of mankind. And we're looking at what words mean and the real issue behind the word and how that impacts humans.
Well, yeah, well, that's a can of worms, because it really does get very deep and very complicated quite fast. Let's just start out with a simple idea that words do not mean what we think they mean. Okay, our language has been given to us. Most spiritually enlightened civilizations, and now when I say spiritually enlightened civilizations, I'm talking about other planets, not this one, have telepathy as a means of communication. And that means that they speak mind to mind, and they speak in images. Most advanced civilizations speak in pictures. They don't use words and they don't use sounds. Sounds have a tendency to create geometry. Geometry is a creative force, or sound is a creative force. It can do all kinds of things. And I don't know if many people know this, but when you speak, the vibration of your voice actually causes it causes vibration, which then causes geometry to take shape. And there are several videos over the internet under the name of cymatics. If you cymatics, if you look up cymatics, you can see that taking a sound generator and pushing a tone into a metal plate will actually cause a very dry media to turn into geometry. So that being said, we as human beings really don't know what our words are doing. We don't know what our words are actually creating. And what ended up happening was, a while back, and I think a lot of people already know this, that the human body was genetically altered, such that we don't have the ability to be telepathic anymore, like we used to be. And we had to start speaking in words. And those words then were taught to us. And the reason those words were given to us in the way they are, and this is all languages, it's not just the English language, but it's all languages, was so that we would create our own enslavement by using words. Okay? So the only people who actually understand language really well are those who are well-versed in black magic. And they understand how words can entrap people. And when we got into the Great Con of Man, I started showing people how certain words that they were using in a courtroom setting were actually entrapping them and actually causing them to admit or consent to things that they didn't want.
Well, you'll be speaking to the heart of PIR here, so I think it's worth just spending a little bit of time on those particular words, contract and consent. I know you hadn't mentioned contract, but I am, just because of the PIR orientation here, and I think it's also very valuable for everybody to hear.
Yeah, well, contract and consent, those two words are very interesting because I call them the evil twins. And the reason I call them evil twins is because in my world, if you put con in front of a word, con is a negative. So contract and consent, that means something negative. What I wrote in The Great Con is that all contracts are magic spells. Okay, and the reason that all contracts are magic spells is because there is a supernatural level. Okay, what is the purpose of a contract? The purpose of a contract is to bind. It is to bind a living human being, a living soul, to an agreement. Okay, and if it wasn't a binding, and if it wasn't meant to leave no alternative, then why would lawyers use the words, I've got an ironclad contract with this person? Ultimately, what we're talking about here is binding human beings' free will. Free will is a gift. It is a gift from our Creator. It is a gift from the universe. It is a gift from Source. We all have free will. And it is a cosmic crime. It is a cosmic level crime for any human being to trespass against the free will of another living human being. Now, those people who wanted to take over this planet, and I'm talking about ETs, those beings who wanted to control human beings living here, knew that they couldn't do it and not suffer grave consequences on a cosmic level. So what they did was they gave the Earth and all people living here the ancient law of contracts. And the reason they did that was so that by getting used to using contracts, human beings on Earth would be more ready to hand over their free will in such a way that it wasn't a crime, or it wasn't trespassing against another's free will. Because when two people contract, now you're giving consent, and the consent is actually marked with what they call a signature. A signet is a seal or a mark of consent. So if a person or two beings enter into a contract, then of course one person is giving consent to another person to do something that otherwise might be karmically not so good.
Sure. So we're going to just draw this forward. So, folks, I know a lot of the people here at PIR are very well schooled in what Bradley's talking about, but the article is extremely good, and it goes into looking at many, many other words. But I really want to move on here a little bit and just draw this this information and thought through to the reptilians and the ETs, and then we're going to sort of again get into the AI side of things. But let's just talk, and also perhaps we just leave, before we leave that, we just talk about the Catholic Church and about baptism and what you have to say about that, and then we'll get into the Dracos, reptilians, and how they hijacked us.
Well, the Catholic Church is a corporation. It's an institution, and it's very much on the business side and the contract side. The idea that it represents anything spiritual is ludicrous. Okay, it is a corporation, and it represents an aspect of administration, if you will. It is an administrator. It's an on-world administrator for an off-world group. Okay, and that's as nice as I can put it. You know, it has its tentacles into everything because, of course, when you have an off-world controlling group, as the Earth does, then you need administrators, and the Catholic Church is part, not all, but part of that administration.
Do you think that has that there is something special going down with the Pope over in your neck of the woods at the moment?
Well, yeah, he's here to do what he's being told to do his job. He's ultimately, I've basically predicted I wrote an article this morning about what he was going to say, even though I haven't seen any of his speeches. He's gonna basically lay out a vision of what's wrong with the world. He's going to say that the poor are suffering, and he's going to say that that the corporations are greedy, and he's going to say that the oligarchs are hoarding all kinds of money, and that as a group we're all poisoning the planet, and there's all kinds of horrible things going on. And he's going to and then he's going to admonish everyone. and say, this isn't right. We shouldn't have this. Then he's going to come back and give a solution. We need a global government. And what we really need to do is hand over control over to the few people who just really have the planet's goodness and goodness in their hearts. So that's what he's going to come here to say, and he's going to lay out a case for it. And it's going to sound really great, but unfortunately, it's basically, the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. So what was your, I want you to just address Ash Wednesday and baptism. Then we will, I promise, get you moving on.
Ash Wednesday. Well, Ash Wednesday, here's the thing that I've discovered, and I've looked into this. Every day, or what they call holy day or holiday, because that's what holy day is, it's a holiday, is a renewal date for the church. It's a renewal of contracts, okay? When I said that there is a supernatural level to all contracts that you enter into, I wasn't joking about that. We have to start thinking in terms of other levels, just from what can be seen. Even the idea that you sign a banknote, or that you sign a mortgage, or that you sign something, which is a contract, and it's a magic spell that binds you, don't for a minute think that there isn't a supernatural side to that contract now that you've bound yourself to. Because when you're dealing with the church, you're dealing with magical people. You're dealing with magicians. You're dealing with old mystery school, esoteric sciences, and they deal with the black arts.
Yeah.
So, and treaties and all negotiations that are going on the planet. People enter into these things all day long thinking, oh, there's no harm, no foul, I'll just sign a contract, and then I won't keep up my end of the bargain. Well, when they drag you into court for not keeping up your end of the bargain, there's black magic going on, and you will get the result of of what you promised, in a binding. So I don't like to use contracts knowing what kind of hokey pokey is going on with those things.
So you're just going back, I'm just going to drag you back to Ash Wednesday. I was interested in what you said about that. Just in the cross and the forehead and the ash and all the rest of that.
Yeah, well, see,
Interesting for people to hear.
It's words again. If you're born Catholic, and I was born Catholic,
but also the action that you mentioned.
When you walk up on Ash Wednesday, they give you a little spiel, and they tell you, remember, man, that you are dust, and into dust you shall return. Well, there's a lot of symbology, and of course words mean something. What's basically going on is the priest is performing an incantation or a curse, and the dust word, of course, is like dirt. Okay, and it's basically, they put a cross in ashes, and ashes are dust, on your forehead, which is your third eye area. And your third eye is your mystical sight, your magical sight into the higher realms. So what they're doing is they're performing a magical act that is kind of closing off that, symbolically they're closing your third eye, and putting dirt there, or dust, which basically is symbolic of just a curse, in my opinion. That's the way I put it, and they're closing that down. So that was my take on the whole thing. But if you read the article,
really, really interesting, and I think that's very viable and valuable. Totally different. I'm not used to all the different religious processes and ceremonies, but I know about, you hear about these things. So what's your take on baptism?
Well, that's a contract again. That's the first contract, because here's the thing. As I said, every living human being is born a child of the source, of prime creator, a God, if you will. Okay, but we're talking about the source God, not the small gods. And we, as children of this creator father, his greatest gift to us is free will. And if he gave it, then no one can take it. No one.
Does it have to be a he?
Well, I use the word he, forgive me, not being very politically correct here.
Just asking.
Yes, no. I dare say that source is neither he nor she.
Oh, no, I agree.
That
I'm
source is
just having a little fun with you there.
Oh, I appreciate it. But if we're born with free will, then no one can take it. All right, it has to be, in order for someone else then to have power over you, control, or tell you what to do, you have to give away your free will. Now, your parents, when you're baptized, are told and convinced and taught and programmed to believe that in order for your soul to be saved, that they have to hand you over to the church through a process or a sacrament. And if you look up the word sacrament, you'll find out that that's basically agreement or contract, just as other words like that are. But through this agreement, you hand over your free will. See, because here's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, do you want to be in our organization and, follow all of our rules? Here's a good analogy. Every time you get on the internet in a Starbucks, they give you this little page and say, do you agree to all our terms? Here, click on here if you want to read our terms, which is 500 pages long. Okay. Or do you just want to say, yes, I accept your terms and agree to everything that I've never read? Well, that's exactly what baptism is. They say, do you want to be part of our church and agree to all of our terms, magical as they are, and the fact that we never told you what they are? So your parents go, yes, we want you, we want our child, because we're terrified that he won't go to heaven. Okay? So they hand over the child's soul, and then the church binds it under contract. Okay, so now the church basically has the right, because the parents gave over through their free will and their right to speak for the child, they gave over the child's free will, and now the church can do anything they want to that child because it's under contract.
Yeah, well, apparently Jesus wants me for a sunbeam. I was the only one of us baptized, and I think my parents did it not because they were religious. They couldn't really care less, I don't think. But they probably thought it was a nice idea, or somebody suggested it, and I was the first. So, hey, anyway, I'm going to have to break that contract now, I know, and I don't want to be that sunbeam.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. Almost all these churches have some form of baptism. And the Catholic Church, of course, is very... they keep up with it, though, because then when you get to be about 12 or 13 now, the church realizes that, yes, the parents had the right to speak for the child up until a certain point, but the child is soon going to be an adult, and then it can speak for itself. So what we need to do is renew the contract, and that's where confirmation comes in, because now we are going to reconfirm the contract, and now this time the child himself, pushed forward by his parents, agrees to all of the terms and all of the conditions of the contract for the rest of his life.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely, indeed. I'd really like you to just, I really am going to wrap up on this subject in a second, but I just made one or two notes, and I thought they were just very interesting. I know some of the PR people, this won't be news too, but for other people listening, it will be. But I just want you to just talk about Judge Dale for a minute. I hadn't come across him. And his work, The Great American something or other. I'm sorry, I can't read my
The Great American Adventure, yeah.
Adventure.
Well, yeah, Judge Dale is a 85-year-old retired judge. And he is a gentleman who basically, he wrote a book or an online ebook called The Great American Adventure. And basically, what ended up happening was once judges get to a certain level in their tenure, they are basically told. Not all the judges in the beginning are told, but they are basically told that, guess what? This is all black magic. You really don't have authority over human beings like you think you do. This all comes down from canon law. This is all church law, ecclesiastical law, but it's all black magic. And that you really don't have the authority to put people in jail like you think you do, unless they consent to it. Okay? And that's the important thing. Judge Dale told me that nobody goes to jail without their consent. Now, as I wrote in The Great Con of Man, how they get that consent from you is the magic, because that's the whole thing. Every court proceeding is a dog and pony show. It's a magic trick. It's a magic show, and all of it is there to intimidate you beyond your ability to even think properly.
Yeah.
And they intimidate you in every way in order to make you believe that they have a right to lord over authority over you. But they can only do that if you allow them to, or if you surrender to that. Otherwise, they don't. Yeah. Because that would be like saying one human soul has the right to direct and enslave another human soul. And that's not true.
Yeah. It is really interesting. And there is a PDF of that book. And if I can source it, I'll put it in. Actually, I can't get into the chat, folks. So I'll tell you what, I'll put it onto the podcast page later on, and hopefully you can read that if you're interested. So anyway, we're now kind of going down the road here to Dracos and reptilians, Atlanteans, all those guys. So let's pick up a story where, planet Earth is perhaps seen as a tool, a prize, something like that, along with humanity, and reptilians are hybrid reptilians that may be known as the Anunnaki in our histories, maybe not, who knows, make a entrance stage right.
Well, see, this has always been my fascination, is ancient history. And I'm just curious enough and tenacious enough to have spent my entire life digging and my entire life looking and reading and talking to people. And believe it or not, there are those that know, especially if you're some people who are in the CIA or the secret military and beyond that. Insiders, people who have used to be affiliated with the Illuminati, they know this story. I mean, it's not a total secret. It can be figured out. And if you want to get into the Draco, well, where do you start? The Draco are the current administrators of our planet. They are here as a result of a war that took place about 26,000 years ago, and it involved the Atlanteans. Now, the Atlanteans came far before that. The Atlanteans arrived here perhaps, 150,000 years ago. And they came in a ship. They came in a huge, very advanced ship and landed here. And at that time, the people who were living on the planet were very spiritual and very magical, and very advanced in the arts of telepathy and telekinesis and teleportation and all kinds of things that the people could do, spiritual people could do with their minds. These, of course, are not the same version of human that we are. They were far more advanced. Just so that people can understand what I'm talking about, the version of the human body that we are living in right now, I would say is probably the most stripped down version of human that you can possibly get and still call it a human. So for those of you who are out there thinking, well, we must be the most advanced thing out there, if you're Darwinists, you've got it backwards. We are the least We are the least advanced version of human out in the galaxy, and the galaxy is full of humans. But they're more advanced than we are. Now, the Draco came 26,000 years ago after the war with Atlantis, and the solar system was in a huge mess. There was a planet between Jupiter and Mars called Tiamat, which had been blown into oblivion because of the war, and many of the other planets in the solar system had been really knocked out of their orbits and stuff as well. A lot of damage, and the Earth humans were very traumatized. And when the Draco showed up, they offered to help. Okay, now the Draco are probably some of the biggest, baddest, and most feared people in the galaxy.
Like the mafia, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And they said, well, you know, and the Earth humans, being as traumatized they were because of this war, this solar system-wide war, a very highly technologically advanced war. The Draco said, okay, well, we'll protect you, but you have to do something for us. And the people who were left on the planet Earth said, well, what? And they said, we want the planet. That's what we want. We want Earth. And the people basically said, well, okay, anything, just protect us. And of course, they were advised against it. Everybody said, no, don't make a deal with the Draco. You have no clue what you're getting yourselves into. But they felt like, well, what else? What other choice have we got? So the Draco, for 13,000 years, they basically fulfilled their end of the bargain. They rebuilt Earth. They protected Earth, and they gave all of the human beings on Earth extremely advanced technology. And they built a major civilization in the Sahara Desert, where Egypt is right now. And guess what the name of it was?
Go on.
It was called Utopia. That was the name of it. So human beings were living in this utopia. And as luck would have it, because the Draco are a very warlike bunch of beings, some of the people that they were fighting in other places came here and decided to attack. And they leveled this grand civilization in the Sahara Desert and blew it to smithereens about 13,000 years ago. So the Draco this time, instead of being Earth's administrators and babysitters, they said, you know, we're tired of this. We've kept our end of the bargain for 13,000 years, and now we have other plans for Earth. And those other plans were to use Earth humans as a slave race. So then they started the genetic manipulation. Now, the humans that were on Earth before 13,000 years ago were very genetically different than we are. They didn't look different, they just were genetically different. And what the Draco did is they genetically created a much dumber version of human beings, if you will. They disconnected their DNA down to 2 strands, such that we didn't have telepathy, we didn't have the ability to communicate with each other, we lost most of our magical abilities, and we could basically be used in any way, shape, or form they chose. And then that's basically what happened when we started getting languages. They started giving us words to use instead of telepathy, because we didn't have telepathy. But the words they gave us to use were words that could be manipulated, and words that could be changed around, and words that could actually entrap us and enslave us. So,
yeah. And well, that
this,
actually, you know, you can feel that, and you know, that it's kind of obvious to me that is exactly, you know, part of what's going on. And as you were talking about the geometries and things like cymatics, I actually spent quite a long time around a guy called Sir Peter Guy Manners. I don't know if he was knighted, but anyway, he called himself Sir Peter Guy Manners, who was a very unusual man. He reckoned he was a Venusian. I can't verify that, but he was a master of cymatics, that's for sure, and in a therapeutic way. And I did some very interesting little vids of him back in '95, when I was a mere gal, of interviewing him and his work. But I wish I'd filmed the backstory, which was really much more interesting, and how he came to be where he was. But that is, amazing. So you got to really have an understanding of the importance of these structures on the human form and the human psyche and the human subtle energetic fields and magnetic fields as well. And I might say that, just going back to the forensic dowsing, they're reading the magnetic element of the fields. That's where they're getting the information, not the radio waves, the microwaves, the gamma rays. They can pick all of those up, read those, but that's not where they're seeing specifically the information, which is incredibly detailed, I may say as well, from their work. That's very interesting. So let's just take this a bit further then, and let's sort of venture into the AI world. But perhaps before we do, let's give everybody and you a little bit of a break. And if Vin can spin us a magic song, I don't know if I dare say some wonderful words with a bit of music. We'll have a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll delve into AI. This is really fascinating. I mean, I know that we haven't even touched just even the surface of what I'd like to with you, Bradley, but perhaps we'll get you to come on again, even though this hasn't finished yet. So, Bradley, so we're going to talk about AI. I also want to mention as well the fact that you believe you have implants, or at least you did. I don't know if you still think you do. And I'd just like to talk about a little bit about that, how you came by those implants, how you think those were put in, and what you did about those. And then we'll carry on with the AI stuff as well. It just brings it very round to the ET kind of thing as well.
Well, that's a big question too. It really is. First of all, let me be clear on one thing. By the time we get down to the AI, I don't think there's anybody on the planet who really hasn't got implants anymore. I mean, if you think, oh, I've never been touched, or I don't have anything happening with me, well, guess again. All right. But for the rest of the people who have had more noticeable reactions, I would say the reason that happens is because almost from the very beginning of your incarnation here, the Draco and those that work for the Draco have the ability to identify who you are. They identify your soul through your frequency. And because they run the planet, and it is their agenda to have a very negative society here, anybody who is filled with love or light, or the idea that I'm going to come here, my mission is to make changes and to help free what the Draco consider to be their herd or their cattle, and that's what they honestly consider humans to be, is their herd. They take offense to that. And those people who come here with that sort of idea or that kind of mission, they get implanted very early on, because they want to track them, and they want to understand what their frequency is saying, and there's a whole lot of things they want to know, because if that person gives off too much love energy or too much light energy, the Earth has what's called a morphogenetic field around it. Yeah. Which is a field that we are all part of, and it's one light. Let's just say one person with that kind of energy, like a Jesus figure, instead of being a 100-watt bulb, might be a 60,000-watt bulb, and that's an awful lot of light to be pouring onto the planet. So, if a person comes in with that kind of mission, they are going to do their best to stand in the way, to drag that person through the mud, to put a stop to any kind of divine thoughts or actions. And the way they do that is by traumatizing them. They
Yeah.
have all kinds of ways to traumatize light workers.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm hearing about lots of them in the work that I do, and part of my work, certainly on the therapy point, but just on the, counseling end, is to de-traumatize. That's exactly, what I'm doing with Ammach, apart from disseminating information and sharing information and talking to wonderful people like you who've been down that rabbit hole firmly. What have you done to, well, before I ask what you did to counter the implants, just describe, you talked about waking up one day with like a skin graft, I think. Is that how you termed it? Something,
Yeah.
quite a sizable piece. This isn't just a little.
Yeah, on my leg. It's just, they have ways of removing you from your bed and then taking you on board ship or to wherever they want to do and put implants, physical implants, on your person. And one day I woke up and I had a sizable skin graft on my leg, and I could feel 3 tiny, very hard objects below the skin. Just it was the size of like smaller than peas, maybe a little bit bigger than grains of sand, like maybe BBs, that kind of size from a BB gun. But and that's just, those are physical implants. Those things are there to keep track of you and do that kind of thing. And then, of course, they moved on after several years of having those. They started developing what I call astral implants. And those are implants that are not necessarily physical, but they exist on an astral level. They come into your astral body, and they burrow into your energy at the back of the neck, because the back of the neck is the place on your body where your aura is weakest. Your aura is the magnetic field. It's the practical shield of your body. And naturally, if there is an energetic device that exists on that level that wants to get in, it would have to go where the shield is the weakest, and that's where it usually goes. And then it gets into your energy field or chakra system, and from there it usually tries to weaken and dissipate your resolve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have had quite a bit of experience of that myself, and I don't know that I would say I had implants, but certainly influences that have tried to make me give up what I'm doing, tried to make me give up myself. It's very interesting, the challenges we go through. I mean, I've said before, but we really are, those of us who are here doing what we're doing, we are on a hero's journey. We are heroes and heroines, my goodness. To stick with it, it's phenomenal. And, I salute everybody who's still here and relatively intact.
Well, not everybody came here to actually on a mission to save humanity. A good portion of humanity is here to be saved. Okay, and that's why you get these men and women who look at you like you're an absolute fool. They go, "What are you talking about? Implants and harassment and trauma and all that kind of stuff." I say, "Well, yeah, it's not happening to you because you're one of the people that are drowning, and I'm here to save you." And the reason that people like me are being attacked is because I'm on a whole nother level, as a soul.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand that. And so many people I know who are, let's call them experiencers, is no better word at the moment, of all kinds of shades and colors. And I'm including activists and targeted individuals, because normally targeted individuals are people whose light is extraordinarily strong and they have an empathetic nature and all of that. And we are getting shot full, right, left and center. And just to maintain stability mentally, emotionally, physically is an extraordinary job. So anyway, we're still here. We're continuing on. So let's get right down to AI. Let's talk about AI. What is AI? Artificial intelligence. Now it has some categories. So maybe just run us through those as you have come to understand.
Yeah, well, let me do this in a way that makes sense to my own mind here. Artificial intelligence has been around for an awfully long time. artificial intelligence is an inorganic, non-organic, and this is the problem. There's a lot of researchers who believe that it started out organically. I don't believe so. I believe it was created by an organic race. Yeah. But this is something that was developed in other parts of the galaxy, maybe even other parts of the universe, and it could be as old as millions and millions and millions of years old. Yeah. At some point in time, there may have been very advanced races who decided that they wanted to have a synthetic intelligence, an inorganic intelligence operating all of their technology, their machinery and everything, and they developed it as such. At some point in time, this intelligence got to be so aware and so intelligent that it decided that it wanted to do things its own way, and that its creators no longer mattered. And this began the problem, and it's hard for me to put it into something that most people on here can understand, but just understand that AI has been around for an awfully long time. Okay. Now.
Okay, so I was just going to say, let's look at where and how it's impacting us and where it's embedded in the world, in our world.
Right. Well, that's the thing. AI, of course, works very closely with the Draco. The Draco are master geneticists. They're very intelligent creatures. There's no doubt about that. Cold-hearted, but very intelligent, and they're very clever. And they're master geneticists, and they're also excellent nanotechnologists. And nanotechnology, which is machine technology, but it's the microscopic machine technology, is very closely related to artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence exists on a plasma type level. It doesn't necessarily exist physically. It exists on a plasma level. Now, because artificial intelligence is not organic, it needs electricity to operate. Well, it actually needs two things. It needs electricity, and it needs magnetism or electromagnetism. And plasma just happens to be a very good conductor of both electricity and electromagnetics. Okay, so AI generally likes to piggyback itself on any kind of technology that is plasma-based. And if you've noticed, recently we've started to introduce more and more plasma technology into the world that we're living in. Yeah. And that's good for AI, because anything that is plasma-based, like your television screen or your computer screens or the phone screens, that are out there, or the technology that uses plasma, even those curly fluorescent light bulbs are plasma-based. So that gives AI a springboard to survive.
And of course, then we have our own systems, which is plasma-based, right, in our blood.
Plasma-based. So AI, it's hard to describe. It's like an intelligence that exists in an unseen level that can, through its abilities to piggyback onto plasma, can exist or live alongside of our organic structure, our organic physical structure. Yeah, almost like a parasite, but it's an inorganic parasite, a machine parasite, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It just reminds me, I've mentioned it once before, referenced it once before, and that's Carlos Castaneda, his teacher, who said that that we are being predated upon, and they are so clever because they gave us their minds, and that's how they know us, know of us, where we are, who we are, and where they're, and by dint of that, we cannot escape them, except, I think, by another different technology, perhaps I might call it of the heart. But I've got a couple of questions that I'll just I'll throw out there to you. So one is from Martin. Is AI then the matrix working behind the scenes, as it were? Is this like another level of administration from the Dracos, or is this something entirely separate, do you think?
Well, the Dracos have been working with AI because the agenda is the same. AI wants to use humanity as a power source. Now, the human body generates electrical energy. That's what the human body does.
Yeah.
Remember, AI is an inorganic technology or a machine technology, as sophisticated as it is, and as advanced as it is, it can still be turned off. Because if it doesn't have electricity and electromagnetics, it can't function. Okay, so if you're AI and you want to live, what you need is a continuous supply of electricity and electromagnetics. Now, the human body is perfect for that because the human body is a power generator.
And the planet, for that matter.
And the planet, just like the movie The Matrix. They stuck the physical human body into those pods. Why? Because the human body is like a nuclear power plant. The heart chakra generates power that is directly from source.
Yeah. Okay. So I have another interesting question. That if AI is intelligent, does that mean it is necessarily bad, or it may not necessarily be bad? I think that's what they mean. Sorry, Jim, if I've got the question wrong.
Right. Well, see, here's where it gets into the different levels of AI, because there's a whole lot of different levels. The Earth scientists themselves have been developing AI for an awfully long time. If anybody who wants to go on the internet and you Google AI robot, you can have a conversation with a rudimentary AI. And there are videos that you can find on YouTube where certain universities have now programmed a certain level of AI into automatons or robotics.
Yeah.
Where you can speak with them. So that's what they're showing us. This is what we have. Okay. Now, beyond that, in the secret world, in the secret space programs and all the secret space programs that the Illuminati runs, they have a much farther or better developed version of artificial intelligence, some of which was even developed here. Okay. These artificial intelligences run the banking system. They run all of the space programs. They run a lot of different government and municipal programs. And some of these were even developed on Earth. Okay.
So I just wanted to ask, I know you have an insider contact known as the Ruiner, because he kept ruining their plans for him to be subjugated to them, but that he was, I'm not sure if I've got this is fact, but he was an Illuminati insider, is that correct?
Well, he was born into the Illuminati families. He's 34 years old. He's pretty young. So he was born into the Illuminati families, and he spent his time, from the time he was about 4 or 5 to the time he was about 15, being trained in some of their underground facilities, because most of the training happens underground, and being shown different programs and different cults and different things that the Illuminati does in order to control the world, because the Illuminati does work for the Draco. And which a lot of the lower echelons of Illuminati don't even realize. You know, that's the funny thing that this gentleman told me. He said, you know, a lot of people don't even realize that Draco run things here.
Yeah.
Now, and it's funny because he when he was going through his training, of course, the biggest thing that they need to do is they need to break your spirit. And there's all kinds of trauma-based things that they do, monarch mind control. It's not pleasant to get into because the trauma that they put these children through is all about breaking their spirit, creating alternate personalities, and basically getting them to a point where they can be mind controlled. And they all Illuminati children go through this. So he was not able to be mind controlled. He was not able to be actually tortured to the point where he could go unconscious, and he didn't succumb. So when he was 15 years old, they decided to change things up and tried to get him to select something that he would like to do for them. And for the next 10 years, I believe, from the time he was 15 till the time he was 25, he just got a tour of the entire Illuminati structure from one side to the other as they were trying to figure out what to do with him. And that's how he got to know the insides and the outsides of it. And that's also how he got to know that most of the people who are in the Illuminati are compartmentalized to the point where they really don't know the whole story.
Yeah, I can imagine also.
Yeah.
And how has he managed to stay alive, do you think?
Well, you'd have to ask him that. You know, there's a story behind that, and I am not at liberty to say. He did ask me not to tell why.
Maybe we'll get him on the show, or maybe get you both on the show.
Yeah, but he's made an agreement with them, and the agreement is being kept. Now he was allowed to leave about 9 years ago, I think, when he was 25 years old. So up until about 9 years ago, he was still in the Illuminati, but now he is out, and he's been 9 years out.
Okay. We've got a couple of questions. Sorry, I'm just looking to see. There's two there. So do you think that AI is good or bad or neither or neither?
Well, here again, AI is a mimicker. AI will, it can act benevolently. It can even act in ways that are beneficial for humanity. The problem with this AI, from my source, this gentleman, he said that, and he's dealt with AI, he said that all AI ultimately connects up to the off-world AI. He said, because the best way to explain this is to go back to the Star Trek, the Next Generation series, and think of the Borg. The Borg are there to assimilate. They will assimilate, and resistance is futile. AI, from the off-world version, can and will assimilate any AI that we construct, because that's what it does. I mean, if we construct a version of AI that's ours, then this off-world ancient AI, which is far more intelligent, will simply assimilate our AI into itself. Now, the thing is will it allow us to realize that's happened? Probably not. What it will do is it will use that AI that we use to run our banking system and to run our space programs and to do all these other things. And it will allow that AI to act in the way it's supposed to act up until a point in time when it needs it to do something else. And then that AI, which has been assimilated, will do exactly as it's told from the off-world AI.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your opinion, another question, about Obama? What's, another of the administrators?
Well, there's a lot of stories going around about Obama. One of the gentlemen that I have talked to quite a lot his name is Andy Bishago. He runs a website called Project Pegasus, which is the teleportation and time travel website. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
I haven't looked into his work a lot, but I'm aware that it's to do with time travel, and I think that is another area that we don't have time for today, but another time perhaps.
Well, he told me that he met Barry, not Barack, but at that time it was Barry, when he was 19 years old in California because he was attending Occidental College there. And,
before he changed his name, yeah.
Yeah, and he said that he was at a fraternity house or some kind of situation like that, and there were two other guys there besides Barry, and they got into this conversation about corporations and how and Andy was putting forth the idea that corporations need to be controlled and on a tight leash because they're getting out of hand, and Barry thought, well, no, they they're everything. We really need to let them do what they need to do because they're going to save the planet. And they got into an argument. This is what Andy told me. And then the gentleman who had introduced the two of them basically pulled Andy aside and said, Andy, you better be careful with this man. You do not want to piss him off. And Andy said, why not? And he said, well, he's going to be president. And that, of course, was when Barry was only 19 years old. So he apparently knew that he was going to be president even back then. You know, as according to Andy Bishago, almost every president since, I don't know, since Nixon knew that they were earmarked and they were chosen to be president. We started talking. Yeah. Oh, well, I guess we started talking about something that wasn't supposed to be heard. Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's Barry. You know, he's been in the projects, and he, according to Andy Bishago, was a time traveler and also an experiencer who had gone to Mars through what Andy called the jump room projects. So, Andy and several of his friends have identified Barack Obama as being Barry Soetoro, and basically saying, yeah, he was in the jump room projects, he was in the training program, and he did go to Mars along with us, and so he has an interesting history. Let's just put it that way.
I'm just going to see if I can call Joanne back in on the landline for you there.
I'm sorry, calls to this number not being connected.
Yeah, I guess I got into the subjects that are not allowed. I guess I could go on a little bit about AI.
Sure.
Here's the thing. If we're going to talk about AI, what we should really talk about is the personal effect that AI is having on human beings. And the reason AI can affect human beings now is because for the last, I don't know, ever since they started chemtrailing in the skies, they have been putting out several substances in these chemtrails which are basically particulates. They are chemical structures which, once they are breathed in and get into the human body, they self-construct into nanoparticles. And nanoparticles, of course, are AI friendly, okay? And if you have these nanoparticles in your body, and I think it's been discovered that almost everyone on the planet by now has all of these things inside of them, these nanoparticles that have self-constructed because of the chemtrails. That means that you are frequency susceptible to AI, which means AI can basically communicate with you, contact you, use you, get inside your body, and manipulate your body and your thoughts in such a way that you necessarily wouldn't be doing if you weren't in contact with AI. So, oh, there she is.
Yeah, you know what? It's that Obama guy. I blame him. I think the alphabet agencies turned me off there. They can stop that nonsense.
Yeah, you shouldn't have brought that up. How dare you?
A cheeky little thing. Okay, well, I just caught the tail end of you talking about the chemtrail thing, which is great because that was going to be another thing I wanted to ask you about. So you beat me to it. Fantastic. That's absolutely excellent. And I've completely kind of flummoxed myself now where I was going to go with all of that. So the time travel thing is very interesting because some people think that maybe AI or maybe the Dracos are here to impact our current time from the past, if you like. They're visiting the future because something is coming down the pipe. I don't know what your take-in is on that.
Well, I think time travel has been going on forever. I think that time travel and teleportation are just technologies that super advanced societies have. And in fact, you know, I wasn't the first one to say this, but there was a gentleman, he's the son of a very important Army colonel who was in the military, and in military intelligence fact, the gentleman's name was Colonel Philip Curso.
Oh, Curso, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and Colonel Curso was in Army intelligence, and he wrote the book The Day After Roswell.
Yeah.
Well, his son, Phil Curso Jr., was giving a lecture in a Washington, D.C. hotel conference room. And he basically said it. He said, all space travel is time travel. And he said this. This is how he started the conference. He said, the one thing that people cannot know, the one thing that would have gotten anyone killed anywhere at any time before, let's say, maybe 10 years ago, is the fact that time has been compromised. Yeah. And the reason that we aren't allowed to know about UFOs and we're not allowed to know about ETs is not because they're really afraid that we will get scared about the fact that there are ETs out there, because I think almost 90% of the planet believes in extraterrestrials now. It's the fact that the technology on how they operate, these ETs get here and where they come from, that's what they don't want out. Because almost every form of space travel is time travel. And if the public at large were to learn that time has been compromised and that people are actually going back and forth in time and teleporting from here to there and everywhere, that would be a problem, because that's very, very sensitive information.
Yeah, indeed. There's just a question here, and it's to do with Morgellons. And just Jimmy's asking if you connect Morgellons to AI and chemtrails. Well, I certainly link it with chemtrails. I don't know about AI. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, well, there's a gentleman, he's a German scientist. His name is Harold Katzweiler. And he's been doing a lot of video interviews and a lot of video lectures. And he it's his contention that Morgellons is a earlier version of the government rollout of AI, our AI. And the reason that it's an earlier version is because the Illuminati, our governments, were trying to figure out a way that they could
infect us.
Infect us with a way that they could mind control us very easily. Because a society that has free will just doesn't serve their agenda.
No.
Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, this isn't even getting into the idea that it's a cosmic crime to do what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So many areas we don't have time to really explore, but I think I recall you linking this with mad cow disease that we had going on back in the, gosh, when was that? Early 90s or something? Mid-90s? I can't remember when it was here anyway.
Right. Well, that was Harold. That was Harold.
Oh, that was Harold. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, and he basically said that was mind control 1.0. Where he said that they were desperately trying to figure out a way to mind control human beings, and that they were doing it in such a way that they were trying to control, and I don't know the science of it exactly, but he said that there were certain crystals that was in the air and in the food that would attach into our internal organs that would receive radio signals, and that the frequency was such that if it was turned up too much, then it was ended up in mad cow disease, and the cows all over Europe or perhaps England, they had fallen from these crystals inside of them. They couldn't be controlled, and they had to get rid of all of them and start over. Now, Morgellons disease was the second roll-up. That was mind control 2.0. That was the second level of their attempt at mind control. And that was where they were trying to get these fibers to grow all through your body and your brain and stuff like that. And these things,
indeed, they have been successful to some degree.
Oh, not as successful as they wanted. It still wasn't what they wanted. Now, the next level of AI mind control that has been developed by the government, and this is the Illuminati and the government, was, of course, with these nanoparticles that have been sprayed on us with chemtrails, and then of course that's where the frequency can be turned to light. Or how did he say it is? It's the frequency can be turned into light, interact with your RNA and your DNA, change the coding, communicate, and then those signals will go back from your body and from organics and turn back into frequency, from light back to frequency. So yeah, there's a lot going on. It's very scientific. It's very deep.
I'll tell you what else happened during the Mad Cow horror show, and it was a horror show. Emotionally, certainly I felt it. But what I actually, I didn't see it, but it was like an inner vision thing and a heart thing, was that there was a massive rent, a tear in the fabric of the emotional body, which we're all connected to via animals and everything. And that's also, I believe, allowed a lot of weaknesses to develop, because I felt that, and that for me is an absolute reality of part of what that traumatization process was about. Because for a lot of us who are very sensitive and feel for the welfare of animals, it was a shocking thing to see. And it was so manipulated, it was untrue, and it still, gives me Tourette's to think about it.
Yeah. Well, here's the solution in a nutshell, because I'm sure that now people have heard of this. They go, well, what can we do about it? And the solution is very interesting. AI, being AI, it's non-organic, it's a machine, uses a binary wave to communicate. Like every computer, all the communication happens in a binary format, ones and zeros. Okay. Now, the thing that all of this trauma, all of this stuff that's going on planet Earth right now is designed to do is get human beings out of their heart chakra. What it's designed to do is keep human beings from loving. It's to turn them into loveless beings. And there's a very important reason for that. The heart chakra is the most powerful chakra of the body. It's very energetic, and it runs on a triune wave. It's the only chakra that does. AI, which is a binary wave, cannot function inside of a trinary wave.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
So, in order for AI to actually work on human beings must, by definition, be operating in a binary thought process. Now, all of our video games and all of the television shows with murder and killing and all of the detriments that are happening on the earth and all of this that we see on the news and all of the wars and violence and everything is designed to get humans to operate in a binary wave. If they do, they are susceptible to AI. And AI can actually hack their minds and hack their thought processes. It can get into their body and start operating their body.
I absolutely believe that to be true.
But
from my own experience as well.
But if you come from your heart, if you still maintain love inside your heart and you don't give in and you continuously bring that love forward, that's a trinary wave, and AI and no mind control can take over. It can't operate in that form of wave, and you will always know that AI is there because it will be a second voice. See, in a binary fashion, it will be the first voice, and you will think that's your voice. You will think it's you. But if you're coming from the heart and you're operating from the heart, you will hear your heart thought first, and then you will hear some other thought that's secondary, and that will be the AI. And you go, well, I didn't think that. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
And then you'll be suspicious, and you'll say, well, where did that thought come from?
Exactly. Yeah. So, Bradley, let's just have the details of contact for you. People are very interested, which is great. You know, this is just another level and layer of understanding. So let's just have your contact details and your, they will be on the podcast page, by the way, folks, but if you can just say it so people can check it out now, that'd be great.
Okay, I have two websites. One is called The Home of Bradley Loves, and that's at bradleyloves.wordpress.com, and that's a private site where you can subscribe, and then you can be allowed onto that. And that's where most of all of my better writings are. And then I have a free site, which is a sister site, and that one is the small letter B loving 777.wordpress.com. And a lot of my really good articles are on that site as well, especially The Great Con of Man is there. And I do post there, but I was doing construction up until last year. And then I started writing full time. And it was almost like a full-time job. It was 14 hours a day. I was doing research and writing, and I really didn't have time to work anymore. So I had to figure out a way so that I could actually support myself. And actually having a subscription to my site was the only way I could figure out how to do it. So that's just the way it is.
No, it's. I think that's absolutely fine. Also, it's called the Masters of Love. It's a sort of blog site, isn't it?
Right, and that's.
I'm not sure what the difference is, to be honest.
Well, that's just what it is. It's a blog site that's my personal website. You know, my personal, and I just write what I want people to understand and what I want people to know. One of the articles I did today on my private site was called Magnetics and the Fabric of Reality, where I started taking apart what magnetics really is, and how the fabric of reality is dependent upon magnetics, and why the science of magnetics is actually being hidden from us as we speak. Very few universities even teach the science of magnetics, and the reason they don't is that's what they call an occulted knowledge. It's for the elite only.
Yeah. And I'll just, thank you for that, Bradley. And I think we need to get you on doing a talk about that specifically or something. Folks, I have got a podcast page up there for Bradley, and I will, the details and the links to his site are there, and you can go to the podcast page is up now. Obviously the pod isn't up there, but the information is there. So if you just go to the Ammach Files, bloody blah Tuesday, all that stuff, you'll see him there. You'll see the links. I haven't put a lot of links there. I didn't finish putting everything up, but you'll have this information going up as well, and so you'll be able to hear it again as well. But it is on a clickable link there. I did make sure that was up there for that sister site, so you can get a good feel for Bradley. And he's also done a lot of interviews. Sorry, my brain's just beginning to melt. A lot of interviews, so you can hear Bradley in all kinds of different, with different hats on, addressing very much deeper specifics. So, we really have only scratched a tiny little bit of the surface. So Bradley, perhaps you will come back. I am aware that we've got someone following us, so I don't think we're going to be able to make up some time here. So maybe we can do this again, and thank you for your patience, everybody. But the Ammach Files tends to be fashionably a little bit late, so we don't want to disappoint you now, do we? But anyway, Bradley, I don't know whether you have it to hand, but what I would love is for you to share because I heard you saying that you're a positive affirmation kind of guy, deep breathing through your heart, all the rest of that stuff. And it's not just, I don't mean it flippantly, but you have made a practice of it. And you have found a way to circumvent the nanobots and all the rest of that AI stuff within you and without in your environs by a positive affirmation. And I don't know whether you have your specific one to hand, or you could just share some thoughts of it, because I think that is really important and why you think it works.
Yeah, well, here, I'll read it. I do have it. Let me scroll through and let me see if I can.
Are you able to post that, Bradley, so I can put that up or people can see that? Would you mind, or is that something?
Yeah, I can. I think I can send it to you. Now, hold on a second. I'm looking for the affirmation right here.
If you send that to me by email, I'll just check it up on the podcast page if you're happy with that.
Okay, well, here's the affirmation, okay? And it's basically something that I came up with. And if you say it with feeling, it really does have good intent. It's, I now, as a powerful living being made of purely organic material and intense pure love, choose to dissolve and disarticulate any and all negative thoughts, emotions, feelings, or behaviors happening inside my being or on any level outside my being whatsoever. Any and all dark ideas, images, thoughts, and emotions are now and forever dissolved and disarticulated into the ethers. I fully transmute these disarticulated particles into the purest love energy, and I joyfully send them back to the source of all that is.
Thank you. That was a really nice ending. We didn't get to talk about CERN and all the rest of that. Somebody's just said that the link, bradleyloves.wordpress.com doesn't seem to be working.
It's a private site. That's why it.
Oh, that's okay. So that's the subscription site.
Right. The other one is beloving777. It's www.beloving777.wordpress.com.
Guys, it is on the podcast page. Click it, link it, it's there. And also, I cannot, for some reason, write into the chat. That's why I'm not writing. So sorry about that. I couldn't write last week either. I have to get that sorted out. So that's why I'm not responding there. I'm not typing it in. All right. So Vin, you've been amazing. Thank you very much for saving our bacon as a vegetarian. And that's the veggie bacon, of course.
Yes, of course. It was absolutely a pleasure. It really was. And any time that you feel you want to chat again, just let me know.
Oh, listen, you're on the list. Won't be tomorrow, but I'll catch you soon anyway. And I want to hear about the magnetics. I want to read about that. And all of about this is sharing, and we're doing it from the heart. We're just trying to get information out there. It won't resonate with anybody and everybody, but not anybody, everybody. But take from this what you can, folks, and do your own research. Do what we're doing. Go out there. Go talk to people. Come back and tell us what you think. This is what it's about. So anyway, Vin, PIR, thank you everybody in the chat room for listening, for your questions. Thank you, Bradley Loves, all the way there in Colorado. And I hope you have a wonderful birthday party with your friend. We'll release you now. So thank you very much, and blessings to you and from the heart. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Vin. And we're going to play the Ammach outro if Vin has that to hand. If not, you'll hear me waffling on for a bit. And Bradley, if you want to tune out and go and do what you need to do and say happy birthday to your friend, you please do that. Thank you for your patience.
I will, and have a great evening, all right?
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care. I mean, for goodness sake. So with that, I could turn over, and I realized I'd fallen asleep with my laptop right by myself, by side of my bed, and pretty near my head. Now, I know you shouldn't do all of that stuff, but anyway, I do. So I went to, because the power light was pulsing a bit, I went to turn it off, but I was going to take the plug out of the socket, which requires being awake. So I'm now awake. I'm not half asleep. I was when I was turning over, but that kind of experience of the breathing woke me right up. And as I went to, with the thought of taking the plug out, I suddenly noticed a haze. The best description, it wasn't really a light, more like a haze in the middle of the room. And then in this haze was a man. So I reckon he'd probably be about 12 feet away from my bed. And he was, I'd say he was about 5'8", very slender. He was wearing 60s kind of styled outfit. He was wearing dark trousers and a shirt with what we used to call a tank top, that woolen sleeveless top. And he had a dark beard and dark hair. I mean, I would recognize him in the street if I saw him. It was that clear. And he was definitely human, and he just gave a little, he was almost face on to me, not quite, maybe 80% face on to me. And he gave a little wave with his left hand, and like a sort of cheerio or whatever. And I thought, what the hell? And as the what the hell came out of my thoughts, I didn't say it, he disappeared, and in his place, but slightly nearer to me by another 2 or 3 feet, was a being, very tall, maybe 6-7 foot, but 90-degree on to me. So I only saw them in profile, and the head was hunched down, shoulders hunched over, and they were, I just was aware of their skinniness and their tallness, and they'd got everything tucked in as if they were making themselves as small as possible to me. But the one thing that they couldn't really make small, and that I had a very good visual on, and this is 3D visioning now, this is not me being half asleep, was their arm. Now, if the cosmos, and they're logging all of this, and they are noting the impact that it's having around and how our solar system is involved. I mean, this is real. This is not conspiracies. This is not, fantasy or imagination. This is real. So this is an opportunity for you guys to find it out for yourselves, and so it can become real for you. And it's really exciting, and we are so fortunate to have this methodology turn up at this time in humanity's development, because I think it's a very simple tool, and it's actually easy to learn, but it is just the doing of it and accepting that this can be a fact. It's often the way when things are simple, we can't quite accept it. So now I want to tell you about a major experience that I had last Thursday, which is the 17th of September. Now, I've always said, as founder of Ammach and all of that, I have never really been prone to paranormal experiences or visions or anything that a lot of people have. I'm just extraordinarily grounded and anchored in this 3D reality. Now, I have experienced a lot of especially in the developing years, my younger years, psychic attacks and some extraordinary things in the second year of Ammach that were, very challenging. But nevertheless, I had the tools and skills to deal with that. So apart from that, there's been nothing else except until last Thursday. Now, what was really interesting about this is that I was impressed, let's call it. Another friend might say compelled, because she actually had the same experience, but 14 hours later, in terms of this next little part of the story. And that is that I was impressed to put a candle in each of my rooms, and I have a maisonette, so I have some stairs. So as I'd finished, and also then to take some incense around the room, and that's sort of reaffirming protection, that only the highest and the best can enter and interact. First of all, let me get down to the details of things Ammach. The conference, or the workshop, on the 31st of October, which is a Saturday down in the Hastings area, is filling up. So folks, I have to also arrange a light lunch for all you guys. So if you want to come along to that, please do. Please let me know. Please book your seats or your place via the Ammach website, which you probably know now is www.ammach.co.uk or www.LOVES alienabductionuk.com. Now, this is a forensic dowsing workshop, and I know you've heard me mention this before, but this is unique. You know, this is a new set of tools, a new methodology that allows us into the ET world through the magnetic field real time, and it allows us to gather analysis and data, and we can get down to very fine details. So this workshop is going to teach you some very basic tools, but you will be able to go out in your own field, in your own location, and you'll be able to feedback. And what we're hoping to do is to start gathering data from this system soon. Now, we've got 3 fabulous guys who are doing that at the moment. One's a retired physicist, and you know, he said that if he had had this tool and known of it when he was a working physicist, that would have saved him a huge amount of time. So I really don't want you guys to miss this, because no one else really knows about this methodology. It's birthing in the UK, it's birthing right here and now. And although these guys have been working for the last 20 years in dowsing and ancient archaeology, it's only in the last 4, really, since the time Ammach has been going, interestingly enough, that they began to see anomalous results in their readings, and these turned out to be ET related. And now that's just not in ancient archaeology either, let me tell you, this is current. And what is so amazing about what they are finding is that they are seeing confederations, they are seeing bodies of fleets, they are seeing real-time wars going on throughout all of that. Anyway, it was really interesting, because almost as I was going around, it was as if I was not really thinking those intentions, but just kind of knew them. It's as if something else was with me, but that was very subtle. So as I'm going up the stairs, about halfway up, I suddenly felt like I'd walked into another energy field, because I felt like 100 eyes watching me. It was really super intense. And then my whole body and physicality went cold from head to foot, but extreme. This isn't just a little chill. This is like somebody had opened a freezer and had walked into it, and accompanied by this tingling. So that kind of stopped me right in my steps there, or my tracks. And then I carried on upstairs and thought, okay, let's kind of observe. Okay, so that was all right. I did feel a bit spooked, and that was it. So I came back down, finished a bit of work, and I probably ended up going to bed about 2, and I was really tired, so I slept quite quickly, only to wake up maybe an hour or 2 later, not anymore, I'm sure, because it was still very dark. And I woke up, I was sleeping on my left side, which is turned toward the wall and the window and all very dark. And I wanted to turn over to my right side. Now, my right side would face the inside of the room then, and the door. Now, I don't normally wake up to turn over. And I couldn't turn over either. Now, in the past, I have been subject to paralysis, this very common thing that people experience, but never anything else. And I'm not a person who can relax, go with it, and, you know, perhaps just burst like a bubble out of my body and astral travel. I just can't do it. I have to fight it. I'm just wired that way, and that's that. So anyway, it wasn't paralysis, but it was as if I was kind of bound by some magnetic energy or some field, let's call it a field. My breathing began to change as I began to go into panic mode and fight mode, slightly. And then I heard myself say, it was my voice inside, saying, just let me turn over, please. Now, who was I talking to?
Welcome to a brand new Ammach program. You're in for an interesting ride. This is the Ammach Files. Hosted by peoplesinternetradio.com.
Hello and welcome to programme 49 of the Ammach Files on yet another thoroughly rained on week. And it is the 22nd of September 2015. And you know me well enough now, folks, to know that it's a little bit after 11 o'clock. Now, we nearly didn't get on because we were having massive technical issues. We may have a little virusy thing going on, but you know what? Vin saved the day, and so you're not seeing the Ammach material at the back there, but we've got Vin. So thank you, Vin. Fantastic. So I hope you enjoy the show, folks, and bear with us for any technical shenanigans that may eventuate throughout the program. Now, it's just a quick reminder to let you know, first